An unpopular opinion, not everybody needs to be a manager. There's a set hierarchy. You join as an executive, then you become an associate, then a manager, senior manager. Corporate ladder seems
Yeah.
like that for everybody, right? And I think some people just love doing great work and they would love to just be ICs because they're enjoying the work, right?
Mm.
And don't want to manage humans. And I think that's more than okay. We are currently trying to make the visa journey very seamless. It works very simply in that it's like Zomato for visas. People feel HR is just about policies, parties, engagement, and they think we're here to police people. The best people team, HR teams don't just manage people, you know, they actually move the company forward through them. I've never actually loved, how founders say, we're a family, we're a family. We're a family line at work never works, because in families you forgive people no matter what, right? Even if they mess up again and again, it's okay.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of The Screening Room. You will relate with the product a lot. It's a very easy problem statement that they're solving for. And I haven't told the guest yet, but I am actually a customer. We've used, my family, we used Atlys for a visa that we took to Egypt, and it was a seamless process then. Right. So I'm very happy that I'm interviewing Abha Khurana. She's from Atlys. Like I said, it's an exciting product. So I'm hoping that in the interview she will tell us how easy it has been to attract talent and retain them. So Ava, thanks for agreeing to do this with us.
Thanks, Jayant. It's lovely to be here. And I think this is the first time you're telling me you've experienced that
Yeah.
before. I would have spoken about that, but that's for another time. I'm glad. But
Yeah.
hi to everybody.
Yeah. Great. So maybe like a hygiene check, right? So just a little bit of a background leading up to your role here, and then we'll come to what Atlys does a little bit more after that.
Perfect. Sounds great. So currently, of course, about me personally, born and brought up in Delhi. I've been working in the people success function, or let's say the HR function, for last 8-9 years. Right now, I am heading people and culture at Atlys. This is the first people person in the HR team, or let's say the HR person here, in almost 1.5 1 year, 6 months here. And before this, I was working at inFeedo, which is an HR tech company, and spent roughly 6 years. And initially, even before that, my first company, I was working at Urban Clap. I started off working in sales, business development operations. Then, even at inFeedo, I moved on and joined in the sales team. But fortunately, within six, I say 6 to 8 weeks, I had Samira at inFeedo. She had also joined recently. And she wanted somebody in the team to help her out with the recruitment calls while I was working on the sales calls. I also double-hatted working on the recruitment calls. And then eventually she said, why don't you join the people team, or why don't you be a recruiter? It'll be fun. So eventually, then I joined in the people team, was working as a recruiter, and pivoted into like full time people success role where it was not just recruitment, performance, engagement, talent, everything that comes under HR. Now I'm back here, right,
Okay.
doing the same thing, and love this journey throughout.
You said you started with Urban Company, and I think when you were there, it would have been Urban Clap,
Yes, that's right.
right? And I was telling you about how people know about Atlys, and I'm a customer. I'm obviously a customer of Urban Company too, and I think a lot more people in the audience also will be. So it's good that you've worked with two very well-known brands. Maybe for people who do not know, tell us a little bit about what Atlys does and what your role is at Atlys.
Sure. So Atlys is a travel tech company, right? We are currently trying to make the visa journey very seamless. How traditionally people have to go out to visa agents, reach out to travel agents to get their visas, right? And there's a lot of documentation involved altogether to get that done. There's a hassle following up, reaching out to them, understanding what the visa journey looks like. Instead, we are trying to productize it. So it is very seamless and there is literally no paperwork. Right. So I mean, since you've used it yourself,
Yeah.
it works very simply. It's like Zomato for visas, getting
Yeah.
visas easier and quicker.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, I can see you're a Delhi girl, right? Because I would have said it's like Swiggy and you say it's like Zomato. So it's very clear where our loyalties lie. Okay, so I think I discussed this with you before the our first conversation, we're trying to make this a little more personal, right? We've done a couple of episodes, and so we're going to keep it a little more casual. So let me straight away ask you, if someone says HR, and then what do you think is the biggest misconception they have that you could disabuse them of, right?
I think even with the modern HR bit, I think people feel HR is just about policies, parties, engagement, and they think we're here to police people, right? But I think, the best people team, HR teams don't just manage people, they actually move the company forward through them. So I'd say that's the biggest misconception. We are not actually here to police people or just to throw parties.
Got it. Okay. And so now that you've been doing this for a while, what surprises you about people? Because you must be managing people across different levels, across different functions. Even after these many years, what surprises you the most about people?
I mean, I think this is something that I'd say surprises me is, how different the definition of success is for everybody. Now I work with leaders with 10 years of experience, 12 years of experience, and it's different for everybody, right? I thought for everybody, the definition of success is the same, right? But even at Atlys, I see a lot of people, where for one person, I think it's title, for somebody, it's maybe leaving office at 6 early to spend time with the family, or maybe somebody would want a Saturday off, right? So if you assume that everyone's driven by the same carrot, you will keep missing the point.
Got it. And so have you used this to your advantage? You mentioned carrot. So have you dangled that carrot, knowing what people want and then benefited from it?
I mean, if you personally ask me my definition of success or something that I chase, I'd always say money, and I'm very upfront about it. So that's my definition,
Yeah, I think it's a very fair definition. I don't know why people shy away from it, but
which is why I was in sales earlier and sort of pivot
yeah.
to recruitment because it was about numbers and money. So made them.
Yeah, but did you, now that you know, for example, that different people have different metrics or definitions for success, how have you used that at all in, your conversations with them when you're trying to hire someone, for example? Do you sort of figure out what appeals to them and then pitch accordingly?
100%. When I speak to somebody during recruitment, and I think this is throughout my journey, it could be maybe in the screening if I'm speaking as the first person in the people team for doing the HR screening, or it could be towards the end if I'm closing somebody. I always ask them what are the top three decision making parameters
Hmm.
for them to decide that
Yeah.
next move. Let's suppose they have two offers, X and Y, right? How do they decide which one they'll go forward to? Some say
Hmm.
it's location, some says it's the money, some says the title, some says the flexibility. So basis, whenever I'm crafting the offer or whenever I'm trying to get somebody on board, I always try to look back and literally deep dive on those three parameters and make sure the offer that we craft is according to that, right? And even if we're having any negotiations, I'm trying to retain somebody, I always make sure I circle back there, and it also helps the person reflect who's actually told that answer that, oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's very useful. In fact, people say that in sales, right? And I think maybe your sales background helped. Even on the first call, sometimes people ask, what do you think are the three main reasons why this will not go through? Right. And they will start by addressing that. And I think that's sort of what you're doing here. Right? I've not heard anyone sort of do this in recruitment. Kudos there. And talking about things that are not very traditional, maybe is there something that you've done specifically at Atlys that uh, traditional HR folks would raise an eyebrow over, but has totally worked for you?
I mean, I actually honestly don't think that traditional HR folks also want to be traditional. I think very honestly, they're just operating with more rigid company context. If you give them a room to experiment, right, and maybe a little bit of trust, they'll go all out. I mean, for example, let's say you've seen a lot of startups give unlimited paid time off, right? But I think that's more common in a startup culture, right? It's not because the HR, I mean, let's say if we give the same leeway to a traditional HR setup, it's not because the HR doesn't want it there, because maybe they don't have the space to build something like that. It's the context of the company and generations and how they've actually framed the structure, right? That's my thought perspective. People would want to do and experiment new things. It's how the company's framework is, it limits them.
Got it. Have you seen, not just at Atlas then, with conversations with your peers, are the leaders willing to listen? Is there and I'm not talking CHRO, right? I'm not talking CXO, but maybe head of talent. Do you think the founders and so on are broadly in India, are they open to a conversation about these things, or it's more or less set in stone and they don't want to change it?
I think it is very subjective, right? There are founders who are very open, who give, like at Atlys, Mohawk, who's the founder, is literally for all the functions. He's like, you are the functional owner, you are the CEO of that function. So you own the function according to you and you make the changes, experiment. We promote experimentation literally and we celebrate breaking. In fact, we have a core value that is celebrate breaking. So which comes from the part of experimentation. So but there are also founders I have spoken to. I also consult a couple of companies and there are also founders who are very rigid with, how they want to work. They're not even flexible with offering work from homes. Like I think after the COVID setup entirely, when teams started moving to working from office setup, there were founders who actually were not even fine with the hybrid structure. It's not just about working remotely or working from office, but a lot of other things where it is promoting actual employee wellness that we say. But they're just looking for growth and they're only chasing
Yeah,
growth.
yeah. Okay. So you talked about your CEO. So I have a question there. If your CEO basically came to you and said, double the team in 3 months, right? And so there's budget. I will ask you, what is it, the first thing you would not do? What would you not do to rapidly double your team in 3 months?
Because you said there is budget, right? A lot of companies, what they do is they end up reaching out to external agencies, external recruitment agencies, so that they can help you fire fast, right? And honestly, I wouldn't start hiring like my hair is on fire. I'd actually work how we work usually, and it's always, I think, better to be maybe like a leaner team, an understaffed team, than to bring in the wrong people and spend months actually trying to fix the culture. We usually have a process where we have an open debrief. We discuss on, why is this role even important? We scrutinize, is this role even important? Is it a backfill? Is it a new hire? Is it a skill set that's missing? Is it revenue that's at toss if this person's not here? So I'll follow the same process. We'll be more rigorous with it because I've seen a lot of companies, they end up doing like hiring drives. You know what hiring drives do? I mean, there are two ways to do hiring drives. If whoever's applying, you call everybody, there's a walk-in, everybody's interviewing. That's a waste of time. Right? Whereas maybe an organized drive where I spend 10 days just sourcing, speaking to people, and only when they meet the first criteria, I call that lot to office.
So would you say the first step would be just maybe beef up your own team if you want to do a lot more of sourcing and screening and so on?
100%. I'd not
Okay.
just, I mean, I'd just not literally start hiring like my hair's on fire. I mean,
Yeah.
I won't panic hire. Oh, I want this person, that person. I'll end up, I know myself, I'll end up hiring the wrong person.
Okay. Got it. So we talked a little bit about hiring and then you mentioned culture, right? So because you must have handled people and challenges, can you give us some goss on any situation that felt like it was a soap opera? Obviously, you'll anonymize and so on. That's taken for granted. But anything that you've, and not just at your current company, right? In your or whatever, across all your roles.
I mean, I think even if I anonymize, that person would be in our network and that person would be watching it. I don't want to be guilty.
But they won't know, right? But it's okay. See, they know that you know, and you just said it. So I think it's fine.
I think right now, most of the real opera stuff is confidential, right? But
I see.
maybe early in my career, I think I had learned this from Tanmay, inFeedo CEO, radical candor, giving feedback, being very straight up, everything. So, I remember I had given somebody feedback from my team, nothing harsh, literally nothing harsh. It was just like a straight talk, how it is radical candor, right? 2 minutes in, that person started crying, and I'm just like, wow, this literally escalated way faster than any hand
Hmm.
started or prepared me for.
But what was your role then? Were you in the sales role or were you in the HR?
HR role, hence I was giving feedback.
Okay.
I mean, not that salesperson don't do, but I was an SDR when I pivoted to a recruitment associate. And I think
Hmm,
back then I was a people success manager.
I see. And so did that get escalated at all, or it stayed within?
It just couldn't. I mean, I let that die down at that point of time. And then eventually, subtly, we did like a, in the all hands, we addressed all values and everything that we follow, like that candor being one of them. Not a value, but something that we really propagate. And then, I was very subtly saying, "Oh, this is how feedback is given. This is how to take feedback. This is how it's done." So the next time I was always like, just recapping all hands and everything.
See,
I mean, I think that's
but
the most I can give you, right? I'm sorry.
that's fair. That's fair. That's fair. I think again, I have noticed that this is not a very popular thing, right? Radical candor that you mentioned, and um, this also actually I can ask you this question because in radical candor, um, sometimes when you start interviewing a person, let's say you schedule the interview for an hour, 5 minutes in, you know that this is not going to go anywhere. Radical candor would say you terminate the interview right there. You save your time, you save their time. Would you practice it?
I do, but not just 5 minutes in. Let's say the call clock for in like an hour. Maybe I give that 15 minutes. Uh, understand. Then if it's the topic or the conversation is really digressing or really not the way I expect it to be, I'd be very upfront. Maybe you're not the right fit for this role, or maybe the role is not actually the role that you're looking for next, or like your next stint or something on those lines. But I'll be very honest.
Okay, so then good. I mean, that's refreshing, right?
Time for both of us,
Yeah.
because I don't want to be in a loop where that person's following up, dropping me an email, WhatsApp. Oh,
Yeah.
what's the update? What's the update? Because then I have to think, oh, when do I have to send the rejection email?
Correct.
Instead,
Yeah.
we save time for both of us.
Yeah. I'm not sure if this is a very popular opinion, but I'm very glad that this is how you're implementing it, which then sort of leads me to, is there, you think, another unpopular HR opinion that you quietly hold?
I mean, I think maybe an unpopular opinion might not be from the HR context, but could be like, if I had to share, I think not everybody needs to be a manager. There is a set hierarchy, right? And that's everybody's notion that you join as an associate, then you join as an executive, then you become an associate, then a manager, senior manager, associate director, director, VP. I mean, that's how everybody has, like, the corporate ladder seems like that for everybody, right? And I think some people just love doing great work and they would love to just be ICs because they're enjoying the work, right? And don't want to manage humans. And I think that's more than okay.
So you're right. What is the understanding here? That you're saying individuals should be okay and they should not aspire to become managers, or are you saying like organizations should not put them into managerial roles?
I think it works both ways. So there are two types of things. Somebody who just enjoys the work and wants to be an IC. And there's somebody who's done people management but understand that this is not their forte because they're being more productive as ICs, right? And they're enjoying the work. It goes both ways, right? I mean, organization shouldn't push them into carving a people management role for them. Good as is, right? They don't have to be managing humans to be an exceptional person or like a five-star employee or something on those.
Have you seen this play out in your experience where they were sort of force fit?
No, no, no. Okay, I think I misheard then. I have seen that happen where people try to force fit and get them manual training because upskilling is required. That's how the cycle is. Sometimes it's about, the IC has to be a manager for their pay scale to increase or maybe to get the next role for them, even a title upgrade. But at Atlys, we have people who are ICs, senior ICs, doing perfectly well. And they're enjoying the role. They really love it this way.
So yeah, so then you're suggesting that the way ICs are perceived should change, right? In sort of the corporate culture, you should not say, "Oh, this person is not managing a team, and so maybe they don't deserve that much of a celebration." Or you're also saying, for example, from a like you said, compensation perspective, just because you're managing doesn't entitle you to a significantly larger salary.
Both the things that you mentioned.
Got it. And now that we are trying to change how corporate culture works, is there something in corporate life, maybe some kind of a meeting or a process that you would like to press delete on, right? Is there something in corporate culture that you think is redundant or irritating?
I think the one I'm about to share is something that I'm also guilty of doing.
Okay.
And I had joined myself, not just Atlys, I've done this before. You know how there's a habit of blocking recurring one-on-ones with your team. Chali ja raha hai. Right? So I think the recurring meeting that no one remembers why it exists. Just, I mean, I'm sure when it started with good intentions. Now it's just there. So no one canceled it. It's always ongoing. I think last month only I put pause to it. I deleted all my recurring invites because we since we're an in-office setup, if there's something really that's needed and it's a roadblocker, I just reach out to that person and be like, oh, XYZ happening, just help me out, or this is something I need your help with. I don't really need that meeting. So I think recurring one-on-ones are bullshit.
Okay, good. Two things. One, you said you deleted your recurring meetings. Do you think this is something that you would promote as policy? Because I think Shopify did this. I am not sure which organization, Shopify or Coinbase. I think it is Shopify. They did this a couple of years ago where they said, we are not going to have recurring meetings as a policy. Right? So there are no check-ins. If you need one-on-ones, you just set them up as the need arises, but we will not do recurring meetings. So I believe it's Shopify. So would you promote that as policy at Atlys?
Policy is a hard word. I think that I would like to build this as a part of culture, certainly. See, I don't, it's a little enforcing, but as a promoter, I would always go ahead and be like, this is something that would not like to go ahead with.
Got it. Okay. You're talking about startup culture. When you were with Urban Company, it must have been much smaller. I think there was also, I don't know, there was a video I saw of the founders going back to their very first office when they went public. I don't know if you saw that. The very first, it's a very tiny, we think we are in a small office. And I looked at that and I said, okay, no, we are living in a palace.
It wasn't a small logo. It was in hundreds, not in thousands. Right now, it must be in thousands. I think 200, 200, 250 or maybe more.
Yeah, but it's okay. So it's still, it was not very small, but it's still a fast growing startup. And you've done Fido and Atlys, much smaller, but again, fast growing startups. And what ends up happening is because you do not, like you said, right, you do not really have policies, you do not have processes, maybe you make some trade offs. Like at any of, again, without taking names, at any of these companies, do you think there was one trade off they did that either the company or at least you regretted?
I think I can say for myself, and I think across orgs I've been part of, and I've made this, I'd say, a couple of times where, we've hired people who were brilliant at what they did. Just not great to work with. They did exceptional work, but I'm not sure initially as well if they'd be great to work with. Right? And as a result, the work, of course, they were doing well, they were shipping fast, but the cracks in culture showed up faster. That literally hit me that skills can build a product but attitude builds a team. So it was very important literally to ship as a team. It was cracks were coming through.
Got it. You said that this showed up even in their interview process, and you sort of I mean, I would not say compromise, but you allowed for it, right? And you said, okay, we will see how this goes. Can you tell us a little bit about what those signals were? Is there anything that you can establish?
I'll tell you about the time where the person was actually exceptional in interviews. Didn't seem like this person won't be a culture fit, right? But then that person, when we hired them, that person within first week did exceptionally well, shipped fast, worked on everything that they were asked to do, zero onboarding time, picked up everything that they had to. But apparently, they were very loud, little disrespectful. Um, and it's not something that we tolerate, right? For disrespect and being rude is like a zero tolerance. Just be empathetic with how you give feedback and the way you give feedback. So eventually, that person, of course, we let go of. That's when I realized that I think थोड़ा cultural trade off नहीं करना चाहिए. I mean, it should be a balance of somebody who would gel well, fit in the culture, will make sure they follow your values, or actually go by them, and also are good with the skill set that you're looking.
So this happened after they joined. Is there any signal that you can detect, or is there some pattern matching you can do before them joining, right? Before you roll the offer out. Of course, you can do reference checks, but Apart from that,
I was about to come to that. I think
yeah,
something that's worked best is, of course, there's a way where when you're about to give an offer, you do like reference check, which is you ask them only, give two referrals, your last two managers, or anybody you'd like to refer for your referrals. Instead of speaking with those folks, we have LinkedIn nowadays. They're reporting to who are their peers. Just map it yourself on LinkedIn. Let's suppose they're working at Blinkit. Just an example. You go on LinkedIn, go on Blinkit. Let's suppose it's a engineering role. Let's say it's a backend role. Go to backend, then understand which person is actually working in the team. Then do a surprise referral, right? Because any referrals that have been given by them would always turn out to be well. Very important to do a surprise referral in those cases.
got it. And have you been surprised by these surprise referrals? Have you had instances where because of that you decided to make an offer or decided to not make an offer? Have
Have
there
went,
been any?
have went both
Okay.
ways. I think you'd also mentioned about, have you been able to identify these patterns in interviews, culture gaps in interviews? I think it is during the conversation only when you put them in such situations and context, way they're responding to it. I think one very important thing is how receptive are they to feedback, right? And I think a lot of people who are watching this would also say in interviews, everybody's very receptive to feedback because they want to get the job, right? But there's a subtle way also that you understand, how they're taking feedback. Are they open to it? Are they somebody who will adapt to the environment? A lot of things, even though they come subjectively, but they do come during your interaction. So you have to have your eyes and ears open.
This is something that you have internalized, and is it sort of part of the process of hiring within your team? For example, you said with time and experience, you subtly can look for signals. Those patterns that are something that you share with the rest of the team so that they also are able to detect these things, or is it more it comes when the candid stage reaches someone like you and then you talk to them, you are the one who's looking out?
No, 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 no. I then my entire team, everybody is always on the lookout, and because it's not just me, the entire team is the owner of culture, right? And I think the
Hmm.
entire org is so
Hmm.
very mindful. Even during the conversation, it comes out when they're also speaking with the team and understand if this person would fit the culture. I'm sure there are a couple of folks who bypass it altogether, and then
Yeah,
when here you get.
yeah, but you'll always have that.
You'll always have that, but they do try to, and they end up making out if this person will fit or not.
We're talking about culture, and as a founder, I would like to know. We make fun of people who do not do what we do, and so I want to be at the receiving end here. Is there a cultural cliche that you hear a lot of founders repeat, and you get very irritated by it, and then you roll your eyes, maybe secretively, but you roll your eyes at those cliches that they repeat? Is there something that you found nauseating?
There is. I've never actually loved, how founders say we're a family. So the we're a family line at work never works, because in families you forgive people no matter what, right? Even if they mess up again and again, it's okay. In a team, accountability actually matters. You can care about people and still hold them to high standards, and that's how it works. But in a family setup, it doesn't work like that. It's a team setup, like a football team, how the coach holds the team accountable. That's how easy it is.
Yeah, yeah, I'm very glad there's agreement here as well. This is back to, I think, Netflix. I don't know if you're familiar, but Netflix started this, right? They said we are a team, not a family. And I completely subscribe to it. So I'm glad that there are some hard truths that are emerging, right? You said, look, salary is important. I completely agree. I don't know why people shy away from it. And the same thing, like you, exactly like a team, I think you work together towards a common end. But precisely like you said, you do not always take people for granted the way you would with family. So very, 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 very glad to hear that. So I'm mandated to ask at least one AI question because we are an AI company. So if AI could take one thing off your plate, right, say tomorrow, what would that be? What would you gladly hand over? And sort of conversely, what would you never delegate to a machine? This doesn't have to be work related. So it could be anything. Like I was talking to someone and they said, I want AI to do house hunting for me. So it could be even something like that. Yeah, both. What would you delegate and never delegate?
Seems like peak Bangalore problem. I mean, personally, I think what I really don't enjoy is, I think time spent to shop, go out, do the negotiation bit. or whatever that. I mean, you would know how girls go. Delhi girls, Sarojini Nagar, Lajpat Nagar, street markets that are there. You have to go shop, na bargain. Only that, but in work front, I think anything related to data, right? I mean, uh, I still get those appointment letters where I have to sign those appointment letters. I have to sign the offer letters, right? So I think take all the letters, data pulls, reports. Don't want to do that. Make sure it is also correct. Like put a prompt, 100% accurate, right? But I think don't touch anything that needs empathy, right? Or maybe a gut instinct, because I think machines don't get people. It's just that maybe they are good at getting patterns, but when there has to be an empathetic, you know, heart conversation, it has to be in person, and a person should lead it because they'll be able to the context more than
So if someone came to you and pitched that we have this bot that can help counsel your team, you would show them the door.
100%.
Okay. All right. So if anyone's watching, don't approach her with this. All right. Okay. Because you've been doing this for a while, when people you meet people, right, and then you tell them you work in HR. Apart from the obvious question like which company and so on, is there something interesting that you've you've heard asked about your role, or maybe there's a misconception about what you do? Is there something that comes to mind?
No, I think I think folks from corporate background only usually do those conversations. Somebody who's coming from a business background or somebody who's not working won't have that conversations. And I think people from this particular corporate background, they'll start venting about their HRs. Somehow I have one of my closest friends, whenever I meet her, I mean, we've been friends since last 9 years, 10 years, since college days. And she'd still crib about her HR to me like I must have a direct line to fix. She always does that. And, and there are people, I think, again, friends, but I'd not meet them often. I meet them once in a while, once in 6 months, once in a year. And, friends of friends. And then without fail, they open LinkedIn right in front of me and they're like, oh, so actually I'm looking for a change. I'm like, अरे, ये सबको थोड़ी hire. I mean, I can always refer, but that's the
I think it's a bit like, I think if you meet someone meets a founder, they probably need an intro to some VC firm or some investor, right? I think it's very similar. So if, you probably get a lot of inbound for both themselves and maybe friends of theirs. At least themselves, you still know them, and you probably know, this relative of mine is looking. Can you help them with a job?
yeah. Relatives also do that. I have my relatives, they'll be like, okay, so my niece, my nephew, distant relatives, nieces and nephew again, but they'd be like, they've just completed graduation. Can they do an intern? I'm like, but I know that they are not the best fit. Why would I hire them? I would want exceptional people. If they're
Okay, so actually, let me ask you then. How do you're definitely not going to say this as much as you want radical candor. You're not telling your relatives they're not exceptional. So what do you exactly say?
we are looking for experienced folks who worked travel
Ah,
tech
okay.
background. So we don't. But I'd
Hmm.
always make that, we want people who come from travel tech background.
And because there are not too many people who have done travel tech, so that's your excuse, right?
Yeah.
I
And
see.
I hope they're not watching this.
I was thinking because when I talked about that incident, you said, that person will most likely be watching it. So you're very careful there. And here you're, being explicit. So it's okay. I don't think we are not, I'm not Nitin Kamath with, millions of views. So it's okay. I think you're lucky that you're one of the first few guests. So we're all right. Okay. So talking about family and friends and so on, is there a work story that you want to tell, but you've never done that? It could be anything. It could be interesting. It could be emotional, whatever, right? Anything that you probably have told people at parties, but something that's interesting.
You won't tell emotional stories at parties. I don't think that. Why would
I
I
mean,
need
depends on
that?
how drunk you are, but yeah.
I think it's mostly about how Gen Zs are at work. It's mostly that we had this. It's very funny. We had this person. You know how somebody comes because they don't know all these tools like Notion, Slack, नहीं पता होता, right? LinkedIn we barely like, if they come from a good university, they usually masters, they'd onboard them. This is how LinkedIn works, this is how outreach works. So usually I hire those people only, but then Slack and everything, you have to onboard them that this is a communication tool. This is Slack. this is Notion, like the common collaboration tools you use, right? You know how you tell them about Slack, it is like a communication tool similar to WhatsApp, but in a formal setting where you can instantly speak with people. You don't have to use WhatsApp because that's private and this is work. And then there's profile picture and there is status and status how you update. I don't know how somebody just thought that this is like status for the entire world and not just the company. And they're like, oh, looking for a job. I don't know. Maybe it was just, I mean, they were about to finish the internship. So it could just be intentional that I'm looking for a PPO, right? But I didn't ask that person. It was as good as a open to work LinkedIn banner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somebody from works. I chose to ignore.
Okay, good. That was a good build up to your punchline is very good. So good. Okay, so obviously you have a team, and if we were to ask your team what your weirdest habit is as a manager, what do you think they'd say?
I think again, it's again very funny, and this happened today as well. All of a sudden, a serious meeting, and now we're working. So we'll sit in a room, we're working on laptops. Somebody's doing call, and then I'll randomly start humming to some Punjabi music, and I'll be like, and very very random song, and then everybody's giving me a side eye. They have to go through that. They have to listen me humming to Punjabi songs randomly, even if serious mode.
But is it something that you want to address, or you're like live with it?
Live with it.
Okay, okay, all right. We've touched on culture several times, right? So this, and again, different orgs, and I'm sure very different cultures, because I think culture also has a lot to do with the kind of product or the kind of market you're serving, right? And so very different brands that you work with. If you had to say what culture is, so I'll give you a statement, you give me sort of fill in the blanks. Great culture is when people feel what?
I think great culture is when people feel seen, heard, valued. I think that's what inFeedo statement was also with Amber. But I think it's mostly how you're seen, you're trusted and excited to show up. I think that's really it. Everything else is not.
Yeah, I think that's very, very well put. Yeah, I think that's when people feel seen and heard. I think that's very good. Last question in HR or hiring, if there's a phrase that you would wish to permanently ban, what would that phrase be?
I'm just thinking through what's the one thing that we say, and I think that doesn't make sense. Is probably, I'll circle back, you'll get to know about it, or we'll reach out to you. I mean, I don't do that personally, or maybe I must be guilty of doing it. But even when it comes to a lot of recruitment bit, right? Let's suppose the candidate is applied. A candidate would want an complete insight on where their application is, what stage it is at, right? People, instead of giving what exactly is the real insight where they stand, they'll be like, okay, we'll circle back, we'll let you know. I think the loop is not closed.
Yeah, that's good. I think Saqib was here. He was the first guest. He said something very similar. I think we'll circle back or something like that. So glad to know that a lot of the talent leaders are thinking this, and I'm sure a lot of candidates are saying good in theory, but it's not happening in practice. But maybe it'll change, right? But you're right. I think justified at both ends. You're handling a huge influx of candidates. You cannot possibly probably get back to everyone. And also from the candidate's perspective, it's livelihood for them. So they also want some, like you said, closing of the loop. Maybe we'll find some ground for that. All right. So that brings us to the end of this podcast. We've done very well on time. I'm glad. And Abha, thanks a lot for taking the time for this. It was very insightful, but also you're very honest. And, I find that very refreshing, like I said earlier. The radical candor thing shown through here. So I think people watching this will enjoy it and also learn from it. So thanks a lot for taking the time.
Thanks to you folks for having me here. And I think it was a fun session altogether. And I also got to reflect on a lot of things because it was not just about my Atlys experience, it was just throughout the journey. So I think good reflection time.
Yeah.
Thanks. Good time.
Thank you. Bye.